Hey everyone, it's Dr. Hillary from Rangeline Chiropractic. And so today I want to introduce you to my friend Margo. She is going to talk to us about wine. So, Margo, what makes you knowledgeable about wine? Tell us.
Well, hi everybody. I'm Margo, as Dr. Hillary said, and I really like to drink wine. We moved to Indiana about a year and a half ago, and before that, we lived in California for the last 5 years. So, if you live in California, one of your major hobbies is to drink wine. You can go wine tasting. You can go on vacation. You could just go for the day. There was, besides Napa, which everybody knows about, there's just tons of different wine tasting regions within California. Many of them were drivable to our house there. So it just kind of became a hobby. And the more I started talking to people in tasting rooms and learning about it, the more I kind of got into it, and I have appreciation for it now. So
Nice. So we were just chatting before here that you do go to California quite often.
we still have a house
What?
there.
Yep. And so what area do you have the house in?
So our house is in Pebble Beach, which is in Monterey County, and Monterey County is known for its Chardonnay mostly and their Pinot Noir. Those are like the kind of the two main grapes of the Monterey region. Napa, which is about 2 hours north, is where most of the Cabernets that you come across are from. That's like very popular there. Also Chardonnays in Napa, and then south of Monterey County. Are a lot of Zinfandels, which is one of the things I chose for today to taste. So it just depends on what region you're in, what they're famous for. You can get lots of different types of wines all over California, but there's certain regions that are known for growing certain grapes.
Okay. Well, tell us about these two that you chose for us today.
Okay,
I know I posted it in there, but tell us in case anyone's like watching right now,
sure.
and maybe they could just do some day drinking. Because I said, what else would you want to do at 2 o'clock on a Thursday?
On a rainy afternoon. So I chose two wines today. The first one that I chose, well, actually, you should drink in order from, like lighter to darker. So mine's chilling, but I chose the Kendall Jackson Chardonnay, which is one of the most popular wines in America. It's like the number one seller. You can get it everywhere. It's super affordable. And this actually comes from Sonoma. The grapes are grown in Sonoma, California. So this is wine number one, Kendall Jackson Chardonnay. And then the second wine I chose is our red, and it's Bogle, which is an old vine Zinfandel. And old vine Zinfandels are some of my favorites. Some of the vines that we've gotten bottles from have been in the ground for hundreds of years. So it's pretty
Wow.
cool. And Zinfandels are typically grown in very hot areas of California. So, for example, this one comes from inland about an hour or so south of Sacramento. So you need really, really hot weather to grow a good Zin. And I can't remember the whole reason why, but I just know that little factoid. So
It's all right. You are our expert today, so we'll just go with whatever you say.
I just
I will
remember.
not. I will not question anything. I'll be like, okay, yes, it tastes good. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I want to say. So with wine, I've had $200 bottles of wine and they're okay, and I've had $8 bottles of wine that I love. So a price point on wine doesn't necessarily mean it's good or bad. Sometimes it's just marketing. So you like what you like and you don't like what you don't like, and don't be afraid of holding up your $12 bottle and saying this is my favorite wine. So that is not, price doesn't necessarily dictate quality. So I want to put that out there. So when you're looking at different wine glasses too, this is a typical Chardonnay glass. Go this way. And what makes it a typical Chardonnay glass is it's kind of uniform throughout. And then when you taste it, you get like a yummy like smell. There's a lot of surface area on top, and it hits your nose in a different way versus this glass. This is a Zinfandel glass, and you notice it's a little more tapered at the top, so there's more concentrated flavor, if that makes sense to you.
Okay.
It doesn't really matter what kind of glass you drink your wine out of. My husband is actually a wine glass snob.
So probably not this plastic wine glass
I
that says Rangeline Chiropractic on it and a little buzzed on the other side.
I have plenty of wine glasses just like that because they're perfect for outside, so it doesn't matter.
Or inside the chiropractic office.
Or inside the chiropractor's office where you don't want to, have any glass accidents. So a couple of things. I'll start with the white. When you're going to taste, first things that you do when you're typically wine tasting is give it a little swirl, because that releases some of the flavors, and then you smell it. First thing to do is take a nice big whiff of it, and then you the primary aromas that you get, the first things come from the grape. So like, do you smell flowers? Do you smell vegetables? Do you smell minerals? Chardonnays, if they're aged in barrels, typically smell a little oaky buttery. That's like the typical Chardonnay adjective that people say, oh, I like an oaky buttery Chardonnay. My husband loves the oaky buttery, which Kendall Jackson is a pretty good example of that. And then the other type of Chardonnay are ones that are aged in stainless steel tanks. And if you like a more minerally Chardonnay, that's what you want to look for, is ones that were aged in stainless steel. And they're really good for summer. To me, the Kendall Jackson is more of like a fall pot roasty kind of
It's
wine.
a very warm one. Like, it's one of my favorites. And I do think it's like warm and inviting, like by a little fire, you know?
Mm-hmm. You get, like when I taste it, I get a little bit of like a caramel taste, a little bit of like the residual sugar. And this wine pairs really well with almost every food. It loves cheese. It loves like a buttery pasta. It loves chicken, fish. It's a really if you're going to go to a dinner party or you're looking for a wine to serve, this is a good go-to. So
that's always a good bet.
Mm-hmm. And then if you go over to the Old Vine Zin, Zins are, we call them our Tuesday night pasta wine. Anything that has a tomato base, like a lasagna or any kind of pasta sauce, a Zin are always my go-to. And it's just because it pairs really well with that acidity, and because it's not a very acidic wine. So.
Would you also, like, I tend to do more reds with like red meat.
Mm-hmm. Yep, like a Cabernet stands really well with like a really yummy porterhouse steak. Zins also pair well with like a chicken with any kind of sauce on them because they're not so heavy. Cabs are kind of like the heaviest of the grapes.
Okay.
So, yeah. This one that I'm tasting right now also doesn't have a ton of tannins on it. Tannins you typically will also get in a Cabernet, and a tannic wine pulls the moisture like off your wine, almost like from a tea bag. Like, when you have tea and the moisture kind of goes away from your tongue, you get that more with red than with white. So that's another little fact. So.
And as far as I know, tannins are better for you, correct?
Yeah.
As far as health-wise, I feel like an antioxidant or something. I mean, I feel like I've read stuff a long time ago about that.
Yeah, if you're drinking wine for health benefits, red definitely has more health benefits than white, as far as like heart health goes. And when they do studies on wine, they typically focus on red wines. And the tannins I think they're good for heart health.
And then, as far as I remember, too, reds have the least amount of sugar content in them. So also great for health is less sugar in your body, less inflammation. Go for more of the reds.
Yeah, definitely more of the reds, because there's the sugar in wine comes from the fermentation process. So the residual sugars that are left over, and they vary from, wine to wine. You can go bone dry, which is like 0 calories. I mean, it like sucks the moisture right off your tongue and it's not that drinkable, all the way up to a sweet wine, like a late harvest Riesling or some of the dessert wines and ports. Their sweetness goes all the way up to, like 120 parts per, I forget the other.
It's probably like a cupcake in a glass.
Yes.
Like sugar. Yep.
Yes. And those sweet wines they certainly have their place. They pair really well with spicy foods. Like if you're going to get like a spicy Indian dish or any other kind of spicy ethnic dish. When we lived in California, there was a great Ethiopian restaurant near us, and they had an awesome Riesling that it just kind of like marries those flavors of the spicy versus the calming down. So if you're going to go for it, and same thing with like a really sharp cheese. Like if you're going to have a really sharp blue cheese, a sweet wine kind of tempers the flavors, and they are, And another thing that I love to pair with Chardonnay is milk chocolate. Milk chocolate, Chardonnay, probably one of my favorite combinations.
We were just chatting earlier that most people that I know love sweet. And I feel like I was a sweet wine drinker, and I'm trying to stay away from sugar. So I've been going more to the Chardonnays, but I feel like eventually I'll probably just end up as a red wine girl because less sugar. you know?
Less sugar. Yeah, for sure. And as far as red wine goes, I mean, like I said before, you like what you like and you don't like what you don't like. I used to think that I didn't like Pinot Noir at all because all the Pinot Noirs I had tasted were from Oregon and, the Pacific Northwest up there. And those Pinot Noirs are very earthy and dirty and they kind of, I don't like beets either. And they have like a beet flavor. And my husband loved them. And then we moved to California and I started to taste a lot of the Monterey County Pinot Noirs, and the Monterey Pinot Noirs I love because they're very fruit forward. So if you think you don't like a certain kind of wine, try it from another region and, go that way. And now I
Never
know,
would have
like,
thought.
yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. I would just be like, no, I don't like it.
I don't like it. Yeah.
No.
And then with sweet wines, some of the Rieslings especially go from dry to sweet. So, if you're in a restaurant and you say to a sommelier or a waiter, I want a Riesling, you kind of need to know if you want dry or sweet. That's kind of an important factor because you might get something that you don't like at all. And don't ever be afraid to ask for a taste before you commit to a glass or a bottle. So I always do.
I have noticed. I used to love Rieslings. That was my favorite, and the Gewürztraminer. And you're right. They would ask you like, "Did you want the sweet one?" And I'd be like, "Yeah,
yeah,
of course."
Is there another kind? Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. And something else when you're wine tasting, if you go to any of the wine regions, you don't have to swallow all the wine. There's spit buckets everywhere. So if you want to have an experience, it's not always about, getting drunk. It's about tasting a different. I mean, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, get an Uber and have at it. I've certainly been there. But if you're, on the trip of a lifetime and you want to be able to taste it multiple places, don't be afraid to swirl it and spit it out. And the wineries do not get offended. Because the first couple of times we went, I was like, I don't want to spit this out. And then you're like, oh, I'm on my fourth winery. I need to start spitting things out.
It's like going to a restaurant and spitting out the food. Oh no, I just wanted to taste it.
I just wanted to taste it.
I didn't want to eat it.
Yeah, it's not natural. And also don't be afraid of, they usually have breadsticks. Some of them, have cheese plates and things like that. Don't be afraid to, partake. So yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else, or do you have any other questions about wine?
Well, I had mentioned to you that I'm into a lot of like blended reds lately, and I don't know who else is listening that might like reds. Someone mentioned that they love dry reds just now. I'm also like a blended red person, and why do you think? Why is that? Tell me why I like that, Margo.
Why do you like that? Well, probably because you like the different flavors. I also am a huge red blend fan. My favorite red blend comes out of my favorite wine region, besides Monterey, because I live near there, is Paso Robles. If you're planning a trip to California and you're thinking Napa, I would urge everybody I know to go to Paso Robles instead. So keep that in mind. And they make a great blend there called GSM. Which is Syrah, Mourvedre, and Grenache. Sorry, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre. And GSM is probably my favorite blend. And the reason that blending works so well is the winemakers kind of pick the best grapes from each crop and they marry them together. And it just creates a good tasting wine. They palate pleasing wine. And straight grape wines, like a straight Cabernet, 100% Cab, is rough on your tongue sometimes. It's not pleasing. And if you do get a straight grape wine, you need to pair it with food. It's not going to be something that you can just kind of like sip, while you're sitting on your patio. So, but yeah, red blends are great.
Okay.
GSMs are my favorite of all the red blends.
I wrote that down so I can go get a bottle of that.
Yep.
Like the brand name is GSM.
No, GSM is the like the varietal of grapes. So like when you're looking, so when you look at this one, it says Old Vine Zinfandel. It'll say GSM here, or it'll say sometimes on the back it'll tell you the percentage of each grape that's in the bottle. So it's the three grapes are Grenache, Syrah, and Mourvedre. Mourvedre is Mouverde, maybe Mourvedre, Dre.
I think it'd be more fun to have you say those 3 times fast after the bottle.
After I finish my bottle.
Spell them backwards, Margo.
No. Yeah. So, and red blends are like, they're a major crowd pleaser. So you can take those anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about like how you serve them? Some people I feel like refrigerate all their wines and some people don't. Tell us about that.
So we in our house here have a Eurocave, which is a giant refrigerator. And the ideal temperature to store most of your wines is like in the mid 50s. I think ours is set at like 56. And then the reds we usually let come up to room temperature, or if it's a wine that's been sitting for a while, we'll decant it before dinner to give it some air and aerate it a little bit and get some oxygen flowing. Whites, it's personal preference. You can serve them chilled to a little bit warmer than chilled. To some people like them really cold. When it's hot in the summer and I'm going to have like a rosé or something, I like it really, really cold. This Chardonnay, I don't love really, really cold, because I feel like you taste the flavors a little bit more if it's not, coming straight out of the fridge. So again, if I had a Chardonnay in my regular refrigerator, if I didn't have a special wine fridge, I would just pull it out about 20 minutes or so before dinner. And then if you care about wine glass shapes, the brand Riedel is one of my favorites. And they have a shape for pretty much every wine.
They do. They have so many glasses.
Yeah, and you can get them at Target.
Yeah, they're everywhere. It'd be so fun to have all the different ones. Although, again, totally like my little plastic ones sometimes.
I've got the plastic ones. I've got the tumblers. I have the stemless. I have the kind that you keep in the freezer so that you can just pour your white right into them and go outside. So again, it doesn't really matter. I've had wine out of a solo cup. So
I feel like this is what makes you a wine connoisseur. So when people go, "Why did you pick Margo?" I'll be like, did you hear the last part? She's got them all, guys. And a solo cup.
It's a funny story. We were getting ready to have wine one night. I told my husband, I'm like, I would like a Zin. And he's like, oh, we can't have Zin. I'm like, why not? He's like, because the Zin glasses are dirty. And he went and got a different kind of wine because he didn't want to wash the Zin glasses.
No way. No.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we've crossed a whole new level.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why he's not on this. No, just kidding.
No, yeah. He's upstairs on a conference call.
Let's see. Trying to think of some other good questions that people might have.
Anybody else have any questions out there in Facebook land?
Well, someone said they love dry reds.
Dry red.
Dry red.
Dry red.
What would you tell people to look for?
Zins can be dry. Cabernets are definitely on the drier side. One of my favorite wines of all time is a 2013 Napa Cab, any brand. If you can get your hands on a 2013 Napa Cabernet Sauvignon, buy it. Their 2013 was a fantastic year for cabs in Napa, as was 2017. Well, I'm very interested to see what's going to happen. Last year was the campfire in that area. So we are not sure what is going to happen to those grapes and that wine. So that'll be interesting to see. Monterey County had a similar fire a couple of years ago, and their wines are just starting to come out of barrel from that fire. And I've tasted a couple of them. And they're smoky and would like pair really well with a barbecue. So I kind of have some hope that not all of the Napa wines from the campfire will be ruined. So
that's a good point. I forgot about that. I remember when that happened thinking, I wonder what's going to happen to the grapes.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny. I know I'm here talking all about California wines because I have the most experience with them. We did go to France a couple of years ago and did a French wine river cruise, which was awesome. And I will say that French wines are the complete like 180 of California wines. California wines, even just American wines, are big and bold and bright and very flavorful. And French wines are very mild and minerally and still have their place and they're delicious, but I feel like you're kind of one of two camps. And we got back from that trip and I couldn't wait to get my hands on a big California red because I was craving it.
I remember the reds over there thinking, is this watered down? Like, or maybe it was the whites. I can't remember. Something I was like, I feel like these are watered down. Does anyone else think that to me?
We got a rosé there. We were in Arles and it was like it was so minerally, it was almost a gray color. It was delicious and it was a really good brunch wine, but a completely different experience for sure. So.
Someone did ask, advice for a good wine club, looking to try a wine club to try wines not known to this person. So,
Okay. Not known. There's a couple of wine clubs that I've seen online. A great one that one of my friends belongs to is that there's one through the New York Times that sends you a bunch of different varietals. Also, if they're local, the Wine Cottage over in Zionsville, I don't know if they have a wine club, but the guy that runs that place is super knowledgeable. And like, if you just walk in there and tell him like what you're looking for, or what you want to try, he's great, and he gets wines from all over the world at really great price points. Another place is West Clay Wine and Spirits, which is right near my house here. They have a lot of different tastings. If you just follow them on social media, they have tastings all the time, and you can just go in and taste. One thing I will recommend with Indiana, not all wine clubs ship here, so make sure you check that first. And because an adult signature is required when you get wine delivered, but you can also reroute to Walgreens and they'll sign for you if you're not going to be home.
Oh, that's a good tip.
Yeah. Another tip is you can, if not, I mean, we're in Corona land right now, but to have it delivered to your office. That's another to make sure somebody will be able to sign for it. So keep that in mind.
I'm not going to lie. I've totally done that before.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't because I was a teacher, so it's not really have alcohol delivered to school, but
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but depending on what you like, and then there's different places. I will say a difference. Some bigger vineyards, especially, they buy their grapes from all over and they make their wine from grapes. And then there's other vineyards that are estate only. And if a vineyard is estate only, that means that they grow, process, bottle, and do everything on their property. So, if you care about that or care about, supporting small businesses, that's another way to go is estate grown.
That's a good point because it's supporting just them.
Yep. And then there's also a huge movement towards organic wines. And there's also Dry Creek Farm, which is really, really popular with like the paleo, low carb-ish.
Yeah, I went that route for a while.
Yeah, I have crackers in front of me right now.
But that brand, because I feel like they set me monthly. Is that correct? Yes.
Yeah, there's different, we have a couple. When we moved to California, we were members of 10 clubs, and 7 still ship to Indiana. So I still have 7 memberships that come here, but they vary in some are 3 bottles and some are up to a case. So you can really pick and choose.
Yeah, nice variety.
Yeah. And when you are signing up to be part of a wine club, there's no like monthly fee or anything. You're just agreeing to buy a certain amount of wine each year.
Okay. So. I like the ones that I feel like that the one, is it called Dry Creek?
Dry Creek
something like that.
I might be making that up. It's Dry Farms. Dry Farms.
Yes. I feel like that was, I got like monthly shipments, but it's probably how I set it up. But yeah, I'm trying to get the more organic, naturally sourced, etc. No sugar.
Yeah. No low sugar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So. What about, I remember when I would do wine tastings, they would always talk about like the rings.
Oh yeah, the legs.
The legs, that's it.
If you swirl your wine like this and then you look at it, this one isn't very leggy. I mean, it's a little leggy, but and then it drips down. That kind of just points to the viscosity of the wine, and if there's a higher alcohol level or a higher level of sweetness. So like your Moscatos or your late harvest Rieslings, they're going to have really big legs after you swirl them because it's the viscosity, and they're like a thicker wine, and you can taste it as soon as it hits your tongue. So
I remember swirling things, but I don't remember why. Yeah, I feel like it's been so long since I've been out and enjoyed any tastings anywhere.
There's 2 reasons. There's 2 reasons to swirl. One, especially with red, is to get air in it, to get it. It opens up the flavors a lot. You'll hear people say like, "Oh, this wine needs to open up," and that means it needs some more air to bring out the flavors. Especially if it's something that's been aged for a while. It needs time. It's been cooped up in a bottle. Another thing that I want to point out: whenever you open your bottles, you want to check your corks. There's a reason if you're at a fancier restaurant, they present you the cork, because this is from the red, and you smell it, it's fine, doesn't smell like anything. And this one's really good. You can just see a little bit of red on top. But if you open up your bottle and you've got like wine down all the way down here that's like absorbed into the cork, your chances of cork taint are higher. And cork taint is kind of like a mold, and it can affect the taste of your wine. So keep that in mind. It doesn't really happen that often with white, especially not a newer white. I've opened a couple of whites that I've had sitting around for a while, and they get yucky. And if you're storing your wine for, longer than a couple of weeks, you want to store it on its side, so that it doesn't have time to get too much air in it.
Okay. So, that must be why all the wine fridges are always like at an angle, and they're a little angled too, aren't they?
Yep. They are a little bit angled. And you also, these are both natural corks, but don't be afraid of synthetic corks, because they are really doing a good job of keeping cork taint out. And don't be afraid of screw tops. One of my favorite wine clubs that I belong to in Monterey is called Shide, and they are all screw top. Number one, it's really fast if you've had a bad day and don't feel like getting out your bottle opener. And there's no chance of cork taint. So
it is so much easier. I do admit, when I find one, I'm like, ooh, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Well, and some people think it's like a sign of not a good wine, but Shide puts out some of the best Chardonnays and Pinot Noirs I've ever had. So, and they're all screw top. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so much fun. Okay. Thank you, Margo, for joining and giving us all of your advice. Someone already said thanks for the great advice. So, yes, thank you so much for being on here. I hope that everyone follows you, which we were going to put your Instagram on the bottom of this after this is over. That way people can follow you on Instagram.
Yeah, my Instagram is Migs, M-I-G-S. It's just a nickname. It doesn't mean anything. Migs 1977, if you want to follow me on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook. Margo Musgnug is pretty much a very unique name, but I'm a little more active, especially when it comes to wine and food on Instagram. So
awesome. Thanks so much for joining.
Bye.